Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and this is James looking at Edaphosaurus. Now, normally I talk about this animal in with the Permian talks with Dimetrodon and his relatives, but with this figure coming out, I said I should do a video of itself. The name Edaphosaurus was actually made in 1882 by Cope. He found it in Texas, and again, same rules apply, older models to newer models. This animal is found as a contemporary Dimetrodon. The sad part is when you look up Edaphosaurus, you get Dimetrodon a lot of times. So I figured I should put my own video out saying, here's this animal's story. So the big thing to point out in general with this animal is that it is a relative of Dimetrodon. I just did the thing I said I shouldn't do. But people often think it's the same thing. And you're going to see that in the toys as I mention it. So first and foremost, I will last reference that my first figure of Edaphosaurus by label was really a Dimetrodon. In my third or second video a few years back, I showed all the different types of Dimetrodon, and so this is one I got from Dollar General back in the 90s, basically a long time ago. And so its name is actually on this one it said Metrocactosaurus, which is actually this guy, a theropod from Middle Jurassic Europe. But the idea here is that was clearly a wrong name, and I have a video on misnamed or mislabeled figures. But this is the first figure I ever bought that had the name Edaphosaurus on the actual stomach or own name. And so obviously it is just the same figure but smaller, and the head's smaller. Now I will mention it with this model here, the most accurate one, that this one there's no name on it, there's no company name, I don't believe. It's yeah, it is. Boley TM04, May 2017, or not, sorry, May 17, just 17, not 2017. And so basically what they did, they just said, oh, it's similar like this. Now, one thing that the two, well, one's a carnivore, one's an herbivore, right? So Edaphosaurus eats plants. The two things I would point out that are most obvious is the cell shape. The cell is not shaped like Dimetrodon cell. Their cells are more rounded off like that, and their heads are way smaller. And they don't have these large teeth because they are plant eaters. I mean, they have teeth, but they're not as large for crushing and ripping. And also on the actual neural spines, so again, kids, if you touch your back right there, little bumps in your back, those are the neural spines. They're just really long in this group. And so on the neural spine, where Dimetrodon just has the spines like this, the Edaphosaurus has little projections on the side of that. And so, as you know, I did with the museum and the Whiteside Museum in Seymour, Texas, and I asked Chris, the director there, I said, why does it have those projections? And he said, oh, because they're living in forested areas, and that if their cell is kind of like spraggly, it has different, kind of like branches, it blends in really well. It's like camouflage. And I was like, brilliant. And so again, this model here, I mean, there's a big debate in paleontology about how much flesh an animal should have, how meaty it should be, but overall, it's just a remake of a Dimetrodon. And then they did it again. And again, I know you can't probably tell the difference, but there's just slightly different sizes, and that kind of really bugs me. I don't know. But then they said, let's go forward and make the same figure, but slightly smaller, and close its mouth, because they're like, wait a minute, this is me speculating. They're like, wait a minute, it's not a carnivore. If you close the mouth, you can't see his sharp teeth, instead of just not having them. The skull should be much smaller, and again, the cell is not a Dimetrodon cell. Same thing. Now, I will point out, oh, that's wrong too. They all have... Okay, that's weird. So these guys have 5 toes and 5 fingers, as they should. This one has 4. So they reduced the size of the figure, closed the mouth, and gave it 4 toes. It should have 5. Then this guy was getting better. I was having hope, because no, the cell is still wrong. It still should be like that, and it still should have projections on it. But it is a different design than just the reprint of this, basically, right? It's laying down, of course, the group are called Pelecosaurus, is a common group of Dimetrodon and that kind of grouping. Early synapsids, best term. But the idea is that these animals weren't hyperactive. They weren't running around and chasing each other. It was very, laying down. That was just something different and neat, and I like that a lot. And I will tell you that my first experience digging Edaphosaurus was 2013. I was with Dr. Bacher, paleontologist, and David Temple, Peace Museum of Natural Science, and Chris Fliff out of the Whiteside Museum. And so we were looking in this pit, and there were a lot of its contemporaries, of little amphibians and sharks that were buried there, and a lot of Dimetrodons. And so the idea was the Dimetrodons were just eating these animals. And in every documentary I ever saw, every book I've seen, they talked about Edaphosaurus being hunted by Dimetrodon, which they didn't rule it out, but we went to a different area where it was a paleo river, meaning that there are pebbles and sand. So where we were with the amphibians and Dimetrodons, it was shell mud, And when you go to where the Paleo River was, there was like a lot of little conglomerates, little sand nodules like that. So it shows you the river system. And we found Edaphosaurus bones there, and in that particular site, no Dimetrodon bones. So I said, Dr. Bacher, having time with the great man, right there in front of me, I said, why would we find this way? And he said, well, think about it. Edaphosaurus has this really large tail, and they're hanging out by the river or forest system. So if a Dimetrodon shows up, they just jump in the river and swim away. And so it's much easier for Dimetrodon to go to the mud banks and dig out the amphibians, right? And so that was my first time experiencing something about Edaphosaurus outside of a book or classroom. So that was kind of cool. Then we moved forward. I have a friend named Daniel Birch. He used to work at the museum. I was in the library, really great guy. And he told me about, I believe it's Collect A, right? Collect A company that I often give props to because their figures are accurate, more accurate, and they're not as, I love Safari, Carnegie, Shilley, all the big companies, but this one in particular is really cool because they come out with different species, and they finally made Edaphosaurus. This is for those of you who are kids who want really accurate figures, this is a guy. Those of you who are adults, I know you're watching, this is a guy. If you want an Edaphosaurus, this is the most accurate one on the market I can find. And so, or at all. They don't really make them very much. But the idea is that you see how the sail is like this large thing here. It's kind of going on everywhere. It's not this. So I love that. It has the 5 toes, 5 fingers, and the head is properly sized. If you look at a Edaphosaurus, I did it myself. Look at an Edaphosaurus skull, this is how it looks. You look at the tail bones we found, this is it. This is the animal. So I always tell people, if you want an Edaphosaurus that is accurate, I don't hate these. I do hate them, but the point is, this is your guy. You want to base it on this one. Last but not least, I want to go over as far as the models, the Jurassic World one. This one is, before I go further, those are the notches I saw. Now they're more uniform here. They're like, each one has like, there's a spine and they're like 1, 2, like that. In real life, they're kind of more randomly dispersed, but still, that's the little bumps there, or it hides it from Dimetrodons in the forest. Okay, about this guy, Jurassic World came out with this. I actually found it at a Kroger's, interesting enough. Also, if you want to buy figures, I would suggest my friends at Dinosaur Park in Bastrop. You can go online, buy stuff. If you can't find what you're looking for, email them, let them know. I always put the information in the description. This is not a paid ad, they're just my friends. So here's the thing here with this guy, it's Edaphosaurus. I will, compare it to the Jurassic World Dimetrodon. So let's open it first with the official scissors of Jurassic James. I believe it's just like 2 parts. So you just do one by the tail. Try not to neuter it. That's a bad joke, I'm sorry. Or inappropriate. This is a weird angle. Okay, I was trying to show you, but to get the job done, I'll have to go. Okay, so I'm guessing people are stealing these because they're putting better points on them. Also, my official scissors are for paper, not for opening toys. I just like them because they're sparkly. So, let's see, one more. Almost. The metal's cutting me. Ow, that actually hurts. Okay, so let's do this. Oh, actually, I could just, at this point, yeah, there it goes. And so, ooh, there you go. Now with a finger, and there. The package, oh yeah, it comes with a Zuniceratops and a Herrerasaurus. So, looking at this guy, first and foremost, there are 5 fingers, 5 toes. The claws are a little long, in my opinion. What's the action? So yeah, you turn it this way, which I actually don't mind that because a lot of the carnivore toys snap and bite, which makes sense. Herbivores snap too, but I can imagine it grabbing onto a leaf or some branch, just kind of ripping them off that way. What I will give them credit for, above the others, other than this is gold. This is gold. Collect A 2018 Edaphosaurus. That's gold. With this guy here, I will give him credit that the sail is not just the Dimetrodon sail. It's not just it's kind of, they're trying to show that change. They are missing little notches on the side. The tail seems a little small, which is a continual thing. And the head's a little bit big, because to me the head looks just it's just less aggressive than Dimetrodon. Like, here's a Dimetrodon, here's Edaphosaurus. So like the head, as you see with this guy, the golden child, it has like a narrowed mouth or snout, which in general, narrow snouts are showing that you're nipping or picking your food. Broad snouts are for like just biting everything, right? And so that's really important. So this guy is more narrow. So I would say that this one is better than all of these. It's not perfect by all means, but like if you're getting one of these, I should say this. If you have one of these and you love it, no problem. But if you're looking for scientific accuracy, that's what I'm pointing out. So these guys they're nice, but this one here is like the next best, and of course this is gold. Now that being said, let's look at Edaphosaurus's like the fat haunches, just really, you know. Anyway, so looking at the environment once again, we have Edaphosaurus. Now in the Carboniferous, we have freshwater sharks called Orthocanthus and Xenocanthus, and they survived to the Permian. We have animals like Diploculus here, the boomerang head amphibian, which if you ever go online or Instagram or whatever, and you see someone with a bucket and they have one of these in a bucket, go, I found this really weird amphibian salamander in Texas. They're lying. They're lying. They're super lying. You shouldn't trust them. You should blast them politely, blast them and not follow them anymore, because these are extinct since the Permian. But again, people will make model clay examples and they'll put in a bucket, put water, and it looks real, and they try to trick people and get more notoriety. And those people are awful. That being said, that's this guy, and we have, I can't remember Uriopsis. I think Uriopsis is also a Carboniferous with this guy and this guy here, of course. So they're all late Carboniferous, and then they all survive into the Permian when Dimetrodon shows up too. And so if you want to know more about this, I've been working for the last, I don't want to say 8 months on a new section of my website where, and I'll put a link below, of the geologic time scale, and it'll show the scale, and I'll have little, well, like, here's the geologic time scale, Jurassic, Cretaceous, all that. Well, no, Jurassic, Cretaceous. And on the side it says like Holocene, or Pliocene, or Cretaceous, or early Jurassic, and you can click on that, and you'll see a page where it says each section of time. So I say, in this case, Permian, you have late Permian, Asia, this time period millions of years ago, and here are some toys that are from that, or animals from that time. You know, early Permian, this part of America, you'll see these things. In Asia, you'll see these things. So something I'm still working. I mean, it's functional. You can go look at it. I'm still adding more information and detail always. And so you will see how these are all found in the late Carboniferous, and then you get to late Permian or early Permian, and they show up. But they all are extinct by late Permian. So they're replaced by their lineage. So Edaphosaurus is a big deal because it's one of the earliest large herbivores with a backbone on land. So it's a really big deal in that evolutionary sense. But again, I don't want to paint the picture of the animal as here's why it's important to evolution. Remember that when it lived, it was one of the largest animals on land. It was the largest herbivore, one of the largest herbivores on land. Didicties are some that are pretty big too. And so we should already know what's Didicties. But so that's why I'm going to show you again, golden, pretty nice, all right, but pretty nice golden collect day. That being said, I'll see you next week.